And here we are. It is episode 52 of the Johnny Canuck podcast. Adrian J. Hoke here. We're excited. It's camp's almost done. But before we get into that, let's see how Roy's doing. How you doing, Roy?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's exciting times. I love this time of year. Although I'm used to it being in September. So it's a little different being in January. But with hockey around the corner, can't wait. I just can't wait. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
It's good. It's great. And what makes it even better is how quickly, like, I always found camp kind of dragged on, and I just wanted to get to the exhibition games, that kind of thing. Not this year.
No, it's exciting. Jumping in real quick. I like the element of having to run with players right away. You know, like making those difficult decisions really quickly. We'll get into that. We'll get into some of the difficult decisions the Canucks might have to get into. But before we get into that, I want to talk about sports and games. This is just something that's come up, and there's really a lot of hype right now about chess. So chess is made a massive resurgence. There's a show on Netflix called The Queen's Gambit, and which is
good show.
It's kind of revitalized the chess being an exciting thing, an esport. A lot of the students that I have as well, they like to say that, I ask them, what do they do? What kind of sports do they do? And they'll say Call of Duty or League of Legends, or I don't know what the other ones are, and I'm like, well, what? That's not a sport. Yeah, it's an esport. It's not a sport, which, begs the question, like, for example, something like chess, Roy, where do you draw the line between games and sports?
Okay. So I've had many conversations about, well, to me, a game, okay, let's talk about a sport. Mm-hmm. A sport, how do you define a sport? Right? The sport could be individual or team. I get that piece. So in that sense, chess fits in.
Okay, well, give me an example of an individual sport.
Swimming.
You swim by yourself, you mean?
Well, swimming races, right? But
you're swimming against other people at the same time.
Right? But I didn't mention competition, but it can be individual or it could be a team base. So it's not always a team base. Okay. Those are the more popular ones. Okay. So you could participate in sports, individual or on a team, but you're always you're competing against somebody. That's great. That's part of sport as well. But there's an athleticism to sport. There's a certain athleticism, and I know I'm going to make people angry, but like there's certain sports or sports out there that I don't get the athleticism, and maybe it's because I'm naive or I haven't researched it enough. Mm-hmm. Chess is not a sport. I don't know what esports means. Electronic, is that what the E means? Electronic sports. So if you're playing sports on electronics, you're not an athlete. So maybe my thing is more athletes versus athletes. You know what I mean? If you play an esport, are you an athlete? No. If you play chess, are you an athlete? Absolutely not. There's no athleticism. So I always put athleticism and sport together, and maybe I'm wrong in that. I don't know. But NASCAR is a big one for me. You're driving a car.
Auto racing, yeah.
I drive a car all the time.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself an athlete. Now, I'm not driving at 300 kilometers an hour and in a circle, but I guess it's really hard when you're always turning left. I don't understand. I don't know. Like now, Indy car racing.
Yeah.
You turn to the right sometimes.
That's true.
And the left, and you go straight.
Yeah. There's hills. I don't understand tunnels sometimes.
Yeah. I don't understand NASCAR, where you go on to an airport basically, and you drive in a giant circle for 1,000 laps or whatever it is, and then they come out and they're sweaty because the car's hot. Obviously, they've had the heat on, and they wear like a full uniform, and they're always down south. So it's obviously, I'm being facetious a little bit, but I don't see. And don't get me wrong, those guys are probably way better athletes than I'll ever be. They're probably in phenomenal shape and all that stuff. I'm not talking about that. I just don't see. I don't understand how that's a sport. just like chess. Chess is a game. It's a fun game. Like, what are we going to have? Monopoly? Is that a sport now all of a sudden? Yeah. Monopoly is a sport. Categories.
What about bowling? Do you consider bowling a sport?
That's a fringe, but
table tennis?
Table tennis is a sport.
Okay.
Yes. Table tennis.
What about golf?
See, that's another one, but you know what? Golf is a sport. I play golf.
That's because you're biased.
Nope. No, I think it is a sport because I think it's not golf how we play, where you get to have a cart and maybe some beverages. And, that's not how they play. They have to walk. And I know it's walking, don't get me wrong. But, hey, there is walking in the Olympics as well. Mm-hmm. So walking is a sport. But there is a physical aspect. And I don't want to depict, like, I guess sitting in a car and having it do everything for you other than steer, doing this.
Is that how you steer when you drive?
Sometimes I do. When I want to scare everybody. Anyway, but for chess, it's this. It's take my thing and do that. Bowling is a little bit more of that. There's technique in bowling. You have to have certain skill. You have to have certain strength in your arm. Obviously, if you have no arms, you can't bowl. No arm strength. I shouldn't say no arms, obviously, but no arm strength. You can't. It's hard that way. So I think there is a certain athleticism. Just because the athleticism is minimal compared to other sports doesn't mean it's not a sport. So I don't know, maybe I've just contradicted everything I've said just in one moment. Just with race car driving, I'm not the main machine. The main machine is a car. So is like flying robots a sport? All I'm doing is a remote control. Is remote control RC car racing a sport? I don't think so.
Horse racing?
It's a hobby. Yeah,
what about horse racing when the jockey wins the Derby and they're all high-fiving him and they got him, it's like the horse did all the work. Dude.
Yeah, well,
you're just holding on, like don't fall off.
Yeah, right. But rodeo, if you go to a rodeo, those guys are crazy. That's a sport. I'll take that because you have to be in great shape to do that.
That's
a crazy sport.
That's very that's not a game.
No, right? Horse racing.
Any activity where you're putting yourself out there where a bull could basically stomp on your chest. That's not a game. Yeah. You're not.
What do you do for a living? I survive. I just try to live. I just try to live every day.
That's a sport.
But horse racing is a little bit interesting. I don't want to be biased. I don't want to put the horse down. The horse is doing a lot of great things, and it's a living animal. A car is not. A car is not. And I just struggle with NASCAR. Not Indy though. Why? I don't know. For whatever reason, I think if you turn left and right, you're using more of your body. I guess. I don't know.
I don't know.
Chess is not a sport though. Not chess.
No, chess isn't a sport. For sure not. I just think about my commute to work every day. I have to drive on the German Autobahn in the morning, and at times I feel like I'm in a sport. Like it's like it's not a game. Like it's a sport. Just the high speed, the danger, the merges at high speed. 120 kilometer an hour merges you're doing when you're entering the Autobahn, for example. Especially with kids in the back that are like, keeping you on your game, with like, comments about this and that. And, to me that in some ways that could be a sport too. But I think like anything that two guys like you and I could just go and start doing, like, to me, that's a game. That's where bowling for me is just, we could just get some old beer cans and then take like a soccer ball and we could like throw it at it. Hey, let's play this game. Like to me, that's a game. And, I kind of feel like golf is sort of the same.
But golf isn't a game. But but golf's a sport. So is bowling's a sport because you're using different parts of your body in an athletic way to achieve a goal. But what is javelin then? Is that a game? Like I could find a really sharp stick and start throwing it around the yard. Is it a game? No, it's a sport because you have to incorporate so many body movements in part of that. That's why I think you can't minimize the sport because of the lack of activity. Obviously, we love hockey. It's a sport. There's a ton of athleticism involved. I would say that there is athleticism involved in those other, like bowling and golf. It's just not as strenuous. However, anybody that's ever played those sports knows you're using if you've never played a sport and you go and do one of those, I guarantee the next day you're going to feel muscles that you didn't know existed. Guaranteed.
Okay. I got two for you, and then we'll move on because, I mean, we could probably go on and on about this, and it's an important topic.
Yeah.
There are people who, you know, and I'm no disrespect, but there are people who think that walking is a sport. Whether it's speed walking, Nordic walking.
Is that just Nordic people walking around?
No, it's with the sticks.
Oh.
But there's like magazines. They're not skiing. There's magazines. Obviously, you can get walking shoes. But even not even just walking, but even just jogging. You know, like jogging. That's a sport. I jog. It's my sport. I don't know. I don't think
it's a sport. I think when you do those,
it's not a game either. It's kind of like a survival skill. You know, like it's one of those. Oh no! Quit. Like you have to have that skill. You know, it's the same for javelin. Javelin's the same. That's a survival instinct or a survival skill. So like walking, jogging, javelin. Let's stop and play some golf.
Oh wow.
So that's where I get the game from. So you've got
are they games too? Sure. A sport is also a game though.
I think a sport mimics some kind of
a sport is a game though.
Activity, some kind of like real life. So like hockey is like war on ice. So like you've got,
and war is a real life
caveman.
Real life activity.
Yeah.
What part of real life does war come into? How many wars have you been involved in real life?
Yeah, but that's why I play hockey. So I'm ready.
Oh, right. Okay.
You know what I mean?
But going back to walking. Walking is an activity. Walking is an activity.
It's an activity.
Unless
it's not even a game.
Unless you're doing it in competition, then it becomes a sport. Because the sport piece, I still think that competition is involved to make it a sport. Sport is competitive. Name a sport that's not competitive.
Then it becomes that takes us back to esports.
Then
what chess?
It's not a sport though, because you're sitting behind a computer. Like there's no athleticism. It's components, athleticism and competition.
So when you're
and I'm not saying vigorous athleticism. I'm just saying any kind of athleticism. Doing this is not athleticism.
So when you're in your walking competition,
which
your
is
Nordic walking
Friday.
Competition, and you get your walking coach, and he's like, "So have you thought of right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot?" Or, oh, really? That's amazing.
Have you tried speed walking? There's a lot of hips involved. Yeah, those glutes are involved there.
It's not good.
AJ,
it's not great for the hips.
My second one. You gotta get moving. You gotta get those shoulders get in there too, right?
Yeah, you gotta stretch.
I can't imagine with poles. I can't imagine with the poles now. That just is a lot of stuff happening. I think if it's in competition, then it becomes a sport because there's some athleticism, not a great amount, but there is.
I spent a couple summers in Switzerland, and I actually got hiking sticks, like for hiking, or
hiking is not a sport.
It's an activity, survival activity, which could become a sport if you're racing somebody. But so I was doing these ascents, like doing summits, basically on my own for these 2 summers, and so I got these sticks because they help you go down when you got a bit of a bad knee or whatever. They help you go down. You can actually distribute your weight going down.
So when you're old.
And so we've been, so since COVID, we've been doing these family walks, and I brought out the hiking sticks or whatever for my kids. And basically every time we go for a walk, there's like, I don't know if it's a game or a sport, but it's basically me avoiding getting poked in the eye with one of these sticks. So game, sport. Let me finish with this. Baseball is not a sport. It's not a sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a sport.
It is.
No, it's not a sport.
Yep.
No.
Based on my criteria, it's a sport.
It's not a sport. You have a bunch of guys all sitting on the bench, right?
Well, they're not playing. They're not playing the sport at the time though.
Overweight, sitting on the bench, watching their buddy swing a stick at a ball. Hey, dude, okay, hit the ball. Okay, go for it. And then they hit the ball, and then they run.
We can minimize every sport the way you just did, though. Hockey, bunch of guys on blades running around. Stick, flat black thing, whack it into a netting thing. And we can say that about everything. So, is it a sport? Yes, it's a sport. Is there as much activity going on in that sport?
Is it a hobby?
Constant? Is it a hobby? No, stamp collecting is a hobby. Baseball's not a hobby.
What if you start trading your stamps?
If you start trading them?
Yeah, trading.
That's just smart because you don't want to have too many at once.
That's smart. Do you know what's not smart? Is me playing when when we were kids and we took our hockey cards and we put them against a wall and then you fire them at. When I did that with my Gretzky rookie the Gretzky rookie that just sold for $1 million just recently. That's great. I saw that and I was like,
I didn't foresee that. Weird. I didn't foresee that cards could be worth value. I had 3 or 4 Mario Lemieux rookies. I had Yzerman rookies. I had Joe Sakic rookies.
Let's not talk about this. This is
not good. All I cared about was getting Murray Bannerman from my friend, the goalie.
Yikes. Yes.
I just want to knock him.
Peters.
How many? Yeah, my third cousin.
Get that. I know. Get that Pete Peters.
Peter Peterson.
Yeah.
So, who knew back then that flicking hockey cards against a wall would have lost us literally thousands of dollars?
Yeah. I mean, nobody's asking us to do any financial advising for them. I would say. So we're at episode 52. We have really exciting camp stuff to talk about. But before we do that, why don't you tell me the best player to play 52?
Right, I will.
Or wear 52.
So I have to. I'm going to include a shout out here as well. So it's episode 52, and this week I do this thing at work where any adult in the building, when it's their birthday, I create 3 fun facts for them. Completely made up. I completely make them up.
Fake news.
It's all fake. I have no idea. So this week it was Kathy Hoekstens, who's our secretary. Now, anybody who's been in school secretaries,
happy birthday, Kathy,
are the most important people. And she turned 52 this week.
52.
So, yeah. So in celebration of our 52nd episode, I just want to give a shout out to Kathy. And anyway, it was great. So I'll just give you one of the fun facts is I told everybody in the morning announcements, I announced it to the school that one of her, she loves collecting things, which I don't know if it's true. And I didn't. And I told her that one of her favorite things to collect were pen cap lids. So not the pens. She didn't care about the pens, just the cap lids. And this kind of reminded me with the hockey cards because they had to be in mint condition. No chew marks, no saliva on them, dried saliva. It had no bent little, whatever you call it. What is that thing on the pen cap? That's part of the lid. It's the stick part.
The part I break off every time. Yeah.
Yeah. That can't be bent at all. It has to be in mint condition. Anyway, she received about 50 of them during the day. She was all of a sudden her little collection. So that it was fun because they all bought into. Anyway, in honor of our 52nd episode, happy birthday to Kathy, who's does amazing things for us week in and week out. The school actually doesn't function without her. So,
wow.
Anyway,
I mean, yeah. As you were saying that, I was just thinking that your path in life, Roy, through education and your career has led probably to the place where you may view being the top, and that's you working a microphone for an entire audience every day. So I don't know who gave you that responsibility, but that's a great responsibility that they have handed over to.
Yeah, and they're probably all regretting it.
Mm-hmm.
They're all regretting it because the minute I get the mic in my hand, that must be isn't that a lyric? Once I get the mic in my hand. Anyway, it sounds like a lyric. Anyway, let's go to 52 before I get
52.
Bring out my my alter ego DJ Styles. Well, there's two players, and it's funny. I have to tell you, they played a combined with the Vancouver Canucks. Sorry, I forgot to bring. I'm just bringing up my screen, so that's why there's a bit of a delay here. But there we go. We got it up. So a combined with the Vancouver Canucks, a combined 20 games. That's it. Okay. We have Alexander Sulzer, who the Canucks acquired in a trade with Florida.
Okay.
He played 12 games, had 1 point, was a +6 though. 12 games, not bad. Decent. And the other one was Sven Butenschon.
Sven Butenschon.
Yeah, he played 8 games.
Came from the Islanders.
Yeah. Sven Butenschon played 8 games with the Vancouver Canucks. Ooh, I laugh because so those are the only two. And Sven Butenschon wore it in 2006. And then 6 years later, Sulzer wore it. So, yeah, he came from the Islanders. He was +1 in 8 games. So, based on that, Alexander Sulzer is going to be the greatest Canuck to ever wear jersey 52.
Wow.
So if you don't know who Alexander Sulzer is, look him up. And if you really think he deserves this honor, buy a jersey with number 52 and put his name on the back. Alexander Sulzer, if you are out there, hopefully you're still playing hockey, but if you're not and listening to us because you have nothing else to do, you are the greatest Canuck to ever wear this number.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So yeah, at the beginning you mentioned how excited you are. I've been kind of like very giddy, kind of walking around, waking up like Canucks games are coming. Let's go. And loving just the way the camp is, it's going so fast, and things have to happen quickly. And so we dedicate today, obviously, to doing a bit of a camp review. I think the next time we do one of these, we'll have already probably seen a couple games against the Oilers, which will be really exciting. So we basically are going to go through and review how we feel, what we've seen so far about players' performances and some of the things that Coach Green has said. And why not start with just looking at the lineups so far? So the one thing that is not a big surprise is that Elias Pettersson is made the team out of camp.
Has he?
Yeah, and so has JT Miller. So that's great news. The only thing that may be a bit of a surprise is that the Lotto line has been reunited, and Brock Besser has looked like one of the more consistent forwards so far in camp, and that's been a surprise. No, but he had at times found himself on the third line last year. We saw Jake getting some first line time. Obviously, I don't think they have much choice with the depth that they have on right wing, but I think we can look forward to the Lotto line being a pretty dangerous one that may actually be deployed against other teams' top lines.
Why wouldn't you? I think, and let's not forget too, Brock Besser wasn't demoted to the third line because of his play. It had nothing. He had some injuries, and when he came back, but a lot of it had to do with trying to even out the lines, because Brock Besser actually played with Pettersson and Miller, and they were one of the most dominant lines, but they had no other drive of play on any other lines. So they were trying to mix things up. They tried Besser with Horvat Pearson, but they want to turn that into a shutdown line. Then they put on Eriksson.
He just couldn't break Louis off that line.
Yeah, right. And then anyway, so then that's why they're hoping that maybe Besser could be kind of the catalyst of that third line. It didn't work. So they were always, and I think a lot of it had to do with just that lack of another top six forward. And Jake Virtanen, they tried to get there. Jake Virtanen had great stats last year. He had moments where I thought he did well in that top six role. But let's not forget, like him and Gaudette both padded their stats on the power play. They were both very good on the power play. And they should be back on the second unit power play. But Brock Besser going back on that top line, that just makes so much sense. It's going to be one of the best lines in hockey. It was when they were together. Their Corsies were like always around 60. A lot of the way they played together reminded me of those days when the Sedins, whoever they had with them, like Burrows or Anson Carter or whatever, would just drive play and hold the play in their zone. Like their possession numbers were just so good. This line does it, but now with 3 guys that can all score.
They actually remind me a little bit of in sort of different ways the way they play the West Coast Express, sort of the Naslund, Morrison, Bertuzzi. You've got JT sort of being that kind of grindy power forward. Pedersen is the Naslund and Morrison is sort of the Besser. But obviously it's not a perfect match, but that's the kind of line that I could see that that line growing into. And if the Canucks can actually get that third, we'll get to the third line, but if they can get an actual defensive third line functioning properly, then there'll be space for
this new second
line. And we might have to spend a little bit of time talking about Niels Höglander, probably where most of the buzz is coming out of camp right now is his performance and how he's stepped into an opportunity that Travis Green has given him right from the beginning to play in a top 6 role. And obviously looks like a guy that's been playing against men for half a season in the Swedish Elite League, and looks like he's ready to transition those skills directly onto the ice, thus supplanting Louis Eriksson from the second line. How exciting is that to have this prospect right now look like he can just step in and add offense?
Oh, this is what we talked about. Like, so our last podcast, we had this debate because camp hadn't started quite yet. It was starting the next day. And little did we know what the thought process of the coaching staff was. And right off the bat, they said, we don't have enough time. We're going to throw Höglander in there and let's just see where he fits. And Höglander is in phenomenal shape. He's in good game shape, but he's a good player and he's smart and he's picking things up quickly. Now, the defensive side is where we see long-term if he's going to fit.
Right.
A couple of things I think worked in his favor, Höglander's favor this year. Number one, not playing any exhibition games and having a camp that's only basically 10 days long. You just have to get thrown in the fire. If you make it, great. If you don't, we'll put somebody else in there. And he took advantage of it. He has great work ethic by the sounds of it. So that was an advantage. I don't know if this is a normal situation, a normal camp at the beginning of the year, if he's given this opportunity, to be honest. I don't know if the coaching staff would. I want to believe they would, but you and I have both been talking about deployment with Travis Green for such a long time. And I just don't know if he gives Höglander the chance. I know that they have to at some point, but because of this different type of camp, they threw him in there right away and he's running away with it. And he's looked really good from all the reports. He's one of the stars, if not the star of camp so far. Some other guys have shown that they have some upside. Like I've heard really positive things about Mark Michaelis. I've heard really positive things about Lockwood, who's had a pretty decent camp. But those guys, Michaelis, I think, has a better chance of being maybe on a taxi squad type thing. Mm-hmm. Lockwood's going to get sent down because he has to play games. And now that we know the AHL's playing, he showed well, which is great. It looks like there could be a future for him. But he has to go get some AHL experience. So, this second line could be exciting. When Bo Horvat, the captain of the team, comes out and just praises a young guy at 20 years of age for his ability and his edge work, his tenacity in the boards, how hard it is to get the puck off of him, the smart plays and heads up plays he makes, that bodes well for him. And the Vancouver Canucks really hope that Höglander comes in and not only plays well, but if he could be like a rookie of the year candidate, that's what they're hoping, right? That he comes in, solidifies that second line, because now we have a team. And this is what I've said. I know a few episodes ago, we talked about, I had Vancouver finishing 6th in the division. Basically I had a 1 and a 7, and then a whoever will mix it up in the middle. But camp was going to be telling. The one thing Vancouver didn't have was that forward scoring depth. Well, if he can help provide that, that's a fix that they've been looking for. And in a young guy, that's a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, he's shown incredible speed. He's got fantastic skill. I think everybody or a lot of Canuck fans have probably seen the lacrosse style goals that he scored. He scored a couple of them in the Swedish league. His hands are incredible, and something that some of his teammates have said in Europe over here. There's a player in Germany, and I think the other players in Sweden, but both have sort of praised his strength on his skates. So like he's 5'9", 5'8", 5'9", 185. So he's a thick guy, and that he's just really hard to get off the puck, which bodes very well when you're starting to look at the defensive side. But just the speed, the need for the Canucks as far as speed goes is just so great. I mean, you've got Sutter doesn't have terrible wheels, but I mean, back checking, he seems to be pretty slow. You've got Beagle and Louis don't bring that speed that the Canucks need. No. They need to have speedy guys. Michaelis has got great wheels. Yeah. Obviously Tyler Mott's got great wheels. Jake, Gaudette, Roussel, those guys have got the speed. I mean, Höglander brings that elite skill level. He's been playing with men already. He's already shown a floor. I know it's early, but we got to be excited anyway. He's definitely shown skill. Like the skill is there. Did you see the Roussel give and go goal that he scored, the winner in the first scrimmage? I mean, this guy's darting in between players, and just to make the moves and to be in the right place, the speed, the balance, and the skill, I mean, they're all there. And if you give this guy an opportunity, and he's playing with two big players that can get to the net, he can create space. I mean, they've got to be excited. I mean, Bo and Pierce have got to be excited about having a young, skilled guy.
Yeah, they haven't had a winger complement them on the other side that can have an offensive upside. I mean, when Jake Virtanen was there. I'm not going to say he didn't have an offensive upside, but Jake Virtanen is he's not as smart. Höglander seems like he's a smarter player. Louis Eriksson, it's just a waste of space out like on that line. It was a waste of space on the line. He just was. He can't drive play, and he can't keep up. He can't finish anymore. So having a young guy come out with some energy and some. The other thing we have to remember too is I know his size is always the deterrent, is that 5'9". But you mentioned like 185. That's not a small 5'9". That's not a Johnny Gaudreau 5'9".
More than Petey, right? I mean? So
right, and
more than Gaudette.
He's strong. He's a thick guy, and he battles hard. And so the other thing with guys that are smaller like that, and we see a few of them around the league that are really strong on their skates. They may be shorter in stature, but because they're so strong, their legs are so strong, they're hard to get off the puck. They're able to get to areas of the net, battle hard, and to get those dirty goals. And he seems to be a guy that's going to be able to do that. And he's not going to get killed in the corner battles and stuff like that. See, he's got an edge to him too.
He's got an edge,
he's got an edge, which is important too. So, I mean, again, it's camp. He's looked really well with his team. It'll be interesting because there's no exhibition games. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out early. I'm optimistic. I think he's going to come in here. I also think he has the right mindset. I think he's a player that just doesn't care what people think about him. I'm going to come in. I want to be on the team. He said that right off the bat. I want to be in the lineup right away. And I think he has that drive. And we should be excited because every year we've had this player that we get to watch. Like, not only are we still excited to watch Pettersson, Besser, and Hughes, because there still are three young guys that have the last 3 years have been in in that conversation as the best rookies, new people in the league. They're still exciting to watch. And now we get to add a fourth this year. And then next year, don't forget, Podgolson comes. Like, this is a great time for the Canucks. Well, he might come this year still.
Yeah, he's saying.
What I'm saying though,
man. Let's go.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is he won't be. He'll still have that rookie eligibility next year.
Yeah,
that could be 5 years in a row that the Canucks have somebody excited, possibly for a top rookie or whatever. Which is how you develop a great team. You need those young guys constantly coming into the lineup. And let's not forget Ulevy this year. It looks like he's been doing some PKs.
We'll get to you, Ulevy.
Right?
You mentioned Jake. Jake.
That's that third line, I guess you're looking at.
Yeah, we're moving to the third line. Yeah. So Jake has not had a bad camp. Jake worked really hard. I was going to say over the summer. over the winter
Over the break.
with Tyler Myers and a bunch of other professional, veteran players.
Shea Weber was there.
Shea Weber, to get into shape. And, and he's really kind of looking at, Jake is saying and doing all the right things right now. And the best thing right now for us all, and I think this is good now, is that, you look at Jake as being possibly a good third line forward that can maybe get you 20 goals. I've said Tom Wilson in the past, and I only mean Tom Wilson, not as far as the toughness goes, but Tom Wilson as in, that kind of the ceiling of skill and hockey IQ. I think that's the kind of player that Jake could be. He could be that kind of third line guy who can, can skate up and down the ice, throw some hits, but isn't a guy that the Canucks are going to really need to count on. And I think one of the best things that could happen for Jake and for us fans is to have a guy like Niels Höglander come in and just really not make us forget about Jake, but allow Jake now to settle into a third line role with Adam Gaudette. And those guys, something that I think maybe we talked about it off air. Those guys getting a bit of PK opportunity in some practice. And I think that for the Canucks to move forward, those two guys, well, obviously Roussel needs to definitely wants to bounce back from his injury and a difficult season last year, but he's come into camp in great shape and a lot of enthusiasm. And he's looked like one of the guys who, a dog on a bone, looks like he wants to make this team, where some of the other veteran bottom six players haven't shown the same. This third line excites me, actually. This third line really, and since Sutter was sort of on that, in that third, the third line center position, he's kind of been moved off it, which I got to be honest, has made me fairly hopeful that Gaudette and Jake and Roussel can fit into that sort of defensive role, maybe have a bit of PK time, maybe, allow the matchups to not be against Bo every night. Because we've seen what happens in the defensive matchup against Beagle, that fourth line. Chase the puck, guys. But what do you think about that third line and how Jake is sort of, and even Adam Gaudette too, based on some of the things we've heard about him at camp?
I'm going to start with Roussel first, just because he's the veteran on that line. He even said, he came out and said, I came back too early from my injury.
Yeah.
We have to remember he had a knee injury, and those are really hard to come back. If you try to push it and try to come back too early, you just don't have the speed. It wasn't that his inability to, like, he was in shape and stuff. He just didn't have the push off the jump. Now, if you don't have the speed to play a role he was supposed to play, you're always going to be, and then that creates frustration. And then he became a player we didn't need. Like, we don't need you getting a 10-minute misconducts and doing those things. What we need to do is put constant pressure on the other team's defensive unit by the tenacity of the forecheck and all that stuff. It seems like he's gotten to that point again, which bodes well for Vancouver, because he is that perfect third line left winger, because he has a grit and he also plays a decent defensive game. He's not going to hurt you that way, but he occasionally can put the puck in the net. But for him to be effective, this line falls down to the centerman. And that Gaudette, this is a big year for Adam Gaudette, because Brandon Sutter is gone next year. His contract's up. He's not coming back. So him going on the PK makes sense to me. He has to get better at faceoffs.
I don't know if he's gone. He might get extended, man.
He will not get extended.
He might get extended. Travis Green loves him some Brandon Sutter.
I know he does. He's not getting extended. That
Brandon Sutter.
No, he's not getting extended. But having said that, Adam Gaudette really needs to take a step forward here. Now, him learning the PK is great. What we have to remember, though, that's why, and we kind of forget that sometimes, those special teams, it's that trust factor. It's hard. PK isn't just something you go, hey, you're on the PK.
No,
just don't. No. There's a lot that goes to a PK unit and the positioning and stuff. And for young players, it's usually a difficult thing. Now, Tyler Mott is going to be on your PK. Jay Beagle is going to be on your PK. Sutter, and it looks like Pearson. But Vancouver had to come in and go, you know what? We're not going to have Beagle and Sutter much longer if we can help it. We don't want them here much longer, and we're not going to re-sign them because they're going to age out is really why. And so we need some youth coming in. Well, Virtanen and Gaudette can add that to their repertoire. Now they're more serviceable on this team, and it makes sense. And at their contract, it makes sense. Remember, we talked about it doesn't make sense to have $12 million locked into a PK unit when you could have younger guys or other veterans around the league be doing, like Mott's doing it for 1.2. That makes sense to me. You know, Gaudette is at less than $1 million. Virtanen's at what, 2 point something. So it all, yeah. So altogether, and then you add in Pearson, altogether our PK is maybe around 8 million. That makes way more sense to me because, and I like the role that Pearson can. I thought he looked okay on the PK. He's a smart player, gets the edges. What I like about Virtanen on the PK and Gaudette though is they bring speed. I don't think I'd have them out there at the same time right now. They have to learn that first. But if you put Virtanen out there with, say, a Beagle or a Sutter, who positionally, or a Pearson, I guess, positionally can be in the right spot. I think Pearson's still learning it a little bit, though. So if you put him with a guy that knows where to be, Virtanen's speed, if Virtanen makes the PK and it shows some growth there, I predict right now he'll have 3 to 5 shorthanded goals because of his speed alone. Yeah. His ability to break out of the zone. If he can get in the lanes, block a pass, you can't catch him because the defense will be flat-footed, right? And so there's some, and Gaudette could be the same. He's got some speed to him too. And both guys can finish. So it's exciting. Like Tyler Mott, look at all the PK, opportunities he had offensively, and he's got a bit of speed to him, right?
Well, you said there
it could do well.
You said opportunity, and that's. Yeah. I think that word summarizes a lot how I feel like the Canucks approach to camp has really kind of leaned towards youth in some ways. So you see guys like Jake and Adam Gaudette getting an opportunity to play on the penalty kill. I mean, that's to me, when I heard that or saw that, that was wow. I have to say, very, very surprised. When I saw Sutter move down to the fourth line, which we'll get into in a second, and Gaudette kind of, even though he's coming into camp with, basically lighter than he was last season, even, holding that third line center spot, I was pleasantly surprised to see Niels Höglander really getting a chance on the second line and not even being moved away there. That's also been really nice to see as far as the young players getting an opportunity. Now, it's not just they're going to be given something, but, at the same time, I still feel like, the Canucks are in a situation cap-wise and salary-wise where you may really like a guy like Mark Michaelis, and, he's possibly a guy that could be our fourth line center. But when you've got a guy like Jay Beagle and you've got Brandon Sutter, the coach is just not, he's not going to choose Mark Michaelis over those two guys. It's just, it's, the devil that injuries. Injuries, is the guy. Yeah. Injuries and
Sutter and Beagle are both going to get hurt. We know this.
Well, we hope they don't get hurt.
We know this, but we know they will. They do every year.
We don't need to spend a lot of time talking about the fourth line. I think we've talked about.
Well, I do. There's one.
Mott.
There's one player I want to talk about.
Well, it's obviously Tyler Mott. I think Tyler Mott is no, McEwen. It's not. Oh,
McEwen.
Okay. Well, he's not on the fourth line right now.
He's not on a line. Why though? He hasn't shown well right now.
No,
but I don't, and it's I don't know why. I was hoping that he'd come in and just kind of be a little bit more noticeable, I guess, for a guy but he just signed a contract. Now it doesn't mean he won't be. Let's not forget this. You've seen him in NHL games. You know what he brings. I do think that eventually he'll be a mainstay with Mott on the fourth line, and Sutter. That Beagle Sutter will be in and out. I do. I think this is the evolution of the team we're seeing, and that's as long as A, injuries don't happen, and B, Höglander, Gaudette, and Virtanen continue to improve and show well. Because if they don't, then unfortunately Travis Green's gonna. I mean, it's only 56 games. He's gonna sit there and go, no, I guess I got to rely on my veterans.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're right. And that's all I would say about the fourth line. There's nothing special I want to talk about Beagle or Sutter.
No. the cap. I mean, the cap is going to play a small role in. Well, it's going to a small role. It's going to play definitely a role in how the Canucks, basically start the season. So what we see at the start of the season is something that listeners should understand too, is that some of the things we're going to see at the start of the season are simply so the Canucks are cap compliant, and also can maximize the cap benefits they'll get from the LTI from Michael Furlan. So moving in, talking about defense, one of the surprises that we've just recently seen, and we'll go into the pairings in a moment, but is that Brogan Rafferty has kind of jumped over top of a few players, Jalen Chatfield, and of course Rathbone. So that was a bit surprising to me at first because, yes, Rafferty has shown well in Utica. He had a really good season last year. He's got that offensive ability. But it seemed like Jalen Chatfield with his really nice looking contract and just how he had been basically slotted into the lineup at the beginning of the camp was going to be the guy who got that position. But it sounds like this may be more related to cap situation.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is if you put Rafferty on the taxi squad, you got to put him through waivers. And if you put him through waivers, he'll probably get picked up because of his play last year in the AHL, where Chatfield, I think, can go through waivers and I think he signed a 2-way contract or something like that. So he's, don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is. So, so it's easier to pass through waivers because that taxi squad is going to be huge. Louis Eriksson will probably be on the taxi squad, but he'll take $1 million off our cap because the taxi squad acts as if he's down in the AHL, but without going to the AHL. Right. But I don't think you want Louis Eriksson in the AHL because he doesn't. I know some people have said he could end up down there. I don't think he'll end up down there. I think Canucks have too much respect for Louis Eriksson, and with injuries coming in, he's a guy that will plug a hole in a lineup. Other guys that will be on the taxi squad are guys that you want. Like that's why I'm wondering, like a Mark Michaelis could, because of his role as a centerman. He's a little bit older. He doesn't necessarily need that AHL time like a Lockwood. Cole Lind has been disappointing. I was hoping that he'd show a bit more, but maybe he can go down and be the captain and get top line minutes down there. Stuff like that. Like those are things that they're going to have to look at. But Rafferty makes sense to hold on to. You don't want to lose him because we want to see what he looks like up here. And he's a right-handed defenseman, which is another big piece too. That's why he kind of jumped ahead of Rathbone, I think. Rathbone needs minutes. He needs to be the top guy down in Utica or one of them.
So is this the last we've seen of Sven Berchi?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just haven't heard anything. He's had a good camp from everything that the little bits I have heard, but the fact that he's just not even anywhere in the conversation. I don't even think he's on the taxi squad. I think he goes down and, I think he's just going to kind of ride out into the sunset and he'll sign a contract less money somewhere else next year for an opportunity. But I think the Canucks they won't be able to deal him. Nobody will want him at that contract. I don't see Sven Berchi, barring tons of injuries happening. I just don't see him playing with the Canucks this year, or even on the taxi squad.
One of the, if we go through the defensive pairings, one of the pairings that hasn't changed at all is Edler and Schmidt. That's
a great pairing.
That's a really good pairing, and that looks like that could be the first pairing. So Jim Benning went out and used a 3rd-round pick to get a top 2 defenseman. That's not bad.
That's great. But also the one thing that we forget about Edler knows how to get points. Like he played, people forget, like Edler had over 30 points last year. He had close to the same number of points as Schmidt. Because Edler he's not as fast as he used to be. He doesn't have the hard shot. It never hits the net. He does all those things. But what Edler does really well is he's smart and he puts himself in good positions. He gets tons of assists because he makes the right play. He's that veteran guy. So when you add a Schmidt to him where he can be the legs and Edler makes that first, like Edler is still going to pick up a ton of points and he's going to be that exact veteran, Grizzly veteran on the back end now. Less is going to be expected of him. And I like that.
Those two are hilarious together. Just watching the mic'd up segment and some of the clips. You've got Nate Schmidt he's just going, right? And And he's sitting there talking to Edler, and Alex is, of course, he's the polar opposite of Nate Schmidt. He's just sitting there looking forward, and then he eventually look over at Nate Schmidt, and he's still going. And I mean, again, you and I have been singing the praises of Nate Schmidt. Canucks fans are going to be.
They're going to love him.
We're going to love him. This guy he's that he's that fourth forward. He's going to be able to jump onto the play. His legs are moving.
Well, you basically have two guys like this. And then you have him and Hughes, right?
Yeah, and then you come out with the second line, the second pairing, which is going to be, it's going to be Quinn Hughes and Travis
Hamonic.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll call him Hamonic in this podcast. Yeah. I think we'll go with Hamonic today. So Travis Hamonic and Quinn Hughes. So you'll have that defensive guy on both of those first two pairings. And then you're going to have just such a dangerous, just such a dangerous fourth forward on both of those lines. Yeah. And also I think one of the really a pleasant surprise that we've seen in camp is the play of Olli Juolevi, who looks like he's 22-year-old guy. He's not 25. He's not 26. He's 22 years old. And
it takes time to develop. Like, that's what people forget. The Quinn Hughes has come along. The Cale Makar's come along. The Miro Heiskanen's come along. Not very often. Or the Dollins come along. Not very often. Mm-hmm. Quite often, you have to develop those guys a little bit more in your lineup. So Juolevi, I predict in 2 or 3, maybe 3 years, is going to be in a solidify our top 4. Young guy, he'll be 25 years old then. With Hughes, with Schmidt. Schmidt will be a little older, of course, but and then Rathbone will come up. Like, they've got a really good little system going right now. But Juolevi is going to be paired with Myers, it looks like. I don't hate that pairing. Juolevi's ability to pass out of the zone is great.
Yeah.
Myers, Juolevi can control. Juolevi's got some speed, so he can help control that gap with Myers. It's an interesting third. I like it. I don't hate it. And then looks like Ben will be our 7th for now, and Rafferty our 8th. Don't be surprised though if the Canucks try to trade Ben. This is the last year of his contract, and he's only $2 million. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Vancouver Canucks try to move Ben along somewhere else, and so they can bring up Chatfield and Rafferty possibly. Mm-hmm. I think Chatfield will be on. Remember, we have to have one goalie on the taxi squad out of the 6, and so it's interesting. And sorry, I'm jumping to the goalie right now, but I heard a thing that Ian Clark really likes Silvovs, but I think he needs more time. So I'd be shocked if he's on the team. But some people said it might be more beneficial for DiPietro to go down to the AHL, be the number 1 there for this season, bring Silvovs here because he'll then go down and do it next year. But then next year when we lose probably Holtby in the expansion draft, then Mikey DiPietro can be that backup for Demko. That's if everything plays out that way. But I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. One of the 2 goalies is going to be there. And then I guess what's the rest of the squad? I guess you're looking at Eriksson. Most likely will be on the squad. I imagine Michaelis would be a guess. That's just a guess for me. Chatfield. So that's 3. I'd imagine out of the last 2, you do 1 more forward and 1 more defenseman. I mean,
Justin Bailey maybe,
and maybe a Sontner.
Yeah, I don't
know. Justin Bailey I can see, or maybe you do 2 forwards and do Bailey and Gareovac because they're a little bit more veteran guys that could handle not playing in the lineup but then entering the lineup. Because they're not young guys you have to develop, and then you send guys like Lind and Lockwood and those guys down. I don't know. It's going to be interesting how they handle that taxi squad piece. Because with Utica being in the States, if they call anybody from Utica, and maybe that's where Sven Berchi fits. You don't send him down, you keep him on the taxi squad.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, but you don't because if you're going to plan on because of injuries, if you plan on bringing a guy from Utica, they have to quarantine first for like 14 days. So essentially, a guy from Utica is going to be useless to you in the moment. He's going to be a 2-week thing.
Yeah. The players that are sent to Utica, there'll be no intention of having them come up. Most likely not. So, yeah, I could see Sven Berchi being on the taxi squad for sure. I think Mark Michaelis would probably be there. I think you'll see once Travis Hamonic is actually signed, which may be, by the way, after the first game against the Oilers. He may not actually play in that first game just because of how the cap and the LTI is going to work. So that signing may come after. He may not actually play his first game till the second game against the Oilers.
Which is the next night.
Which is the next night. Yeah. Which, hopefully we'll see both goaltenders too, which will be exciting. Just, you mentioned Silovs. It looks like right now Braden Holtby is going to come out of the gate as sort of the number one guy. That doesn't surprise me. Demko has both goalies haven't been super, super great, but
it's hard to tell in a camp though. Like you have really raw guys in front of you too. Like you're not always going to have one of your veterans in front of you. So when you have a defense pairing in front of you of Tevez and I don't know, like a Chatfield even, they don't understand gap control of the NHL. And if they're playing against like a Pettersson or, it's not even fair to them really. And so the goalie's left out to dry quite often. They've made some big saves.
Yeah.
I think Ian Clark's just looking at their movement around the net. It makes sense for Holtby to start first.
Yeah.
But it didn't really matter because the other goalie is going to play the next night, I think. I don't see the goalie doing both nights. It doesn't make sense.
You brought this guy in from Washington. You signed him to a $4.6 million deal. And he's going to.
Yeah.
I would say he's the number one. He's the number one until Demko forces the hand. But again, like we talked last week, how important, how vital it's going to be in this condensed season for teams to really be strong with a 1A and a 1B. The teams that don't have that sort of, because teams are going to be playing 5 games a week, right? Five games.
A lot of back-to-backs.
Lots of back-to-backs. Maybe not 5 games a night, but probably at least 4 every other night, most likely until the end. So just having that, ability to go with both guys, just I think really makes a difference. And what do you see? What's, if we see today the scrimmage, so the last scrimmage is today, or the simulated game, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And if we see those same lineups, and we imagine seeing, players kind of continuing the way they're playing. Maybe there aren't any massive surprises, unless Louis Eriksson comes out and just kills it. It's like a hat trick.
It won't matter. And it won't happen.
How do you see the Canucks matching up against the Oilers next Wednesday?
I think it's going to be a great game, actually. I think the Oilers they're very similar teams in the sense of they have their number one line. I know in the Oilers in the past have tried to move Draisaitl and McDavid away from each other, but they're struggling to find a second line because those two drive play so well. I think they're going to do the same thing Vancouver's going to do. They're going to load them, maybe put a Yamamoto at the top line there. And then they got Kyle Turris who's come in. Maybe he'll try to solidify that second line with Neil and some other guys. But it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress there. Their third and fourth lines are kind of like Vancouver. They do some things well and not so well. So the forwards are pretty even, except that they have the top 2 players in the world right now. So it's a little bit different, but I really have, I think Pettersson's going to have a phenomenal year this year. I really do. And with that line, I think that Vancouver has the best top line when you look at all 3 guys. Will it be as productive as McDavid Draisaitl? Probably not. McDavid Draisaitl, their power play is just so good. That's what's going to be interesting for me. When I look at the defense, I like the defense in Vancouver now actually better with Hamonic coming in. So it's not a young guy there, and it's not Ben. So Hamonic's better than Ben. And I hate this whole. I don't care if it's who's better than Stetcher and Tanev. I don't care about that. It's who's better on our team right now. Hamonic is definitely a top 4 on our team now. Moving Myers down to the third pairing is way better for him. So I like that. The Edmonton defense with Clefbaum not being here, they got Barry. That's going to help their power play. It's not going to help their 5-on-5 as much, maybe. Barry's is not as great in the defensive end, but the thing is, Nurse is still there, and Ethan Bear is another year older, and they got some guy. Jones is there, so it's okay, but they match up well. The goaltending I love in Vancouver way more than Edmonton. So if Vancouver can put some sustained pressure and force the Edmonton goalies to really move around, I think Vancouver could. The opening game should be pretty good. It's going to come down to special teams. And Edmonton's power play was number 1 last year, and they added arguably one of the top power play defensemen onto their team. I don't care what anybody says. Barry, over his career, has been a power play specialist. That is his thing. He's not the best defenseman in the league. I'm not saying that. But when it comes to the power play, he's very good. And so when you add a point guy like him who can distribute the puck, it's going to be really fascinating to see how Travis Green deploys that PK, because I won't be surprised that, first of all, Vancouver can't take penalties, because I won't be surprised he'll quickly put out the Beagles, the Sutters, and I think Edmonton's going to eat up that PK. I think it's an opportunity, again, there's that word, for Travis to go, you know what, let's get some speed out there. Let's get some guys that know how to handle the stick in the lanes a little bit better, like a Gaudette, like a Virtanen, who have a little bit more length and a little bit more mobility to slap in there with a Mott, and just see what it looks like, because you might as well throw them against the best power play in the league right off the bat and see what you got. Vancouver's power play, though, is not going to be terrible either. And I'm really, obviously the first unit is the same: Hughes, Pettersson, and Miller, with Horvat and Besser, with the bumper in the middle.
Yep.
The second unit I'm excited about, though. So I want that first unit to be out there for a minute to a minute 10, right? I want them to dominate to all 2 minutes if you could in the zone. But if the last 30 or 40 seconds of your power play, you put out Schmidt with Gaudette, Höglander, Pearson, and Virtanen, and Gaudette and Virtanen, Gaudette and Virtanen were two of the best, given the amount of time they've had on the power play with their production in the league, not just on Vancouver, but in the league. And then you add a Höglander and Pearson. It'll be interesting, and where they put everybody. I mean, Virtanen you're going to want for that one-timer on one side, and I guess Gaudette on the other one. But I'd be interested to see where Höglander fits in that, because he might be really good behind the net there.
Yeah,
kind of that
sort of the JT Miller position.
And put Pearson
just skating around.
Yeah. Right, because his ability for the lacrosse goal, you can't take that away.
I wouldn't.
He's so quick at it.
I wouldn't mind. A real thing. I wouldn't mind seeing two defensemen on that second PK. Actually, I wouldn't mind seeing Tyler Myers also. But don't forget how much Edler is loved on the power play. So there aren't enough spots for the defenseman to get on. To get on the power play. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Edler, Schmidt, and Tyler Myers. Tyler Myers is a $6 million man, and he can skate well, and he's actually pretty good on the power play. So I wouldn't be surprised to see two defensemen on that second unit.
Yeah. You and I disagree there. I don't want to see Tyler Myers ever again on the power play. I want to see him as much as I want to see Jordy Ben on there. I don't want those guys to be on there. Getting Nate Schmidt solidified that power play unit, because Nate Schmidt is going to be that point guy. We don't need more than him, just because then you can spread out down low. I like, especially the system the Canucks play. They don't play a system that really is conducive to two defensemen.
And if not this year, next year, Canucks fans are going to see possibly one of, after Quinn Hughes, the best power play quarterbacks the Canucks have had in ages in Rathbone. This guy can skate, and he can shoot the puck as hard as anybody, which will be really interesting. Which will be really exciting.
He'll probably supplant Schmidt, and then Schmidt can just
move down a bit.
Schmidt doesn't. He doesn't need to be on. I mean, he needs to be on there for this year, but that second unit's not going to get a ton of time. Let's be honest. I mean, that number one unit, there's big things that are expected. This is good. Newell Brown, I know a lot of people have high praise for him. I don't all the time, because of his lack of creativity. When it really becomes stagnant, I don't know. He hasn't shown much to me, but what do I know? I'm looking forward to this year, because we know how the Canucks play. Because they're more confident playing together, I'm really hoping for better puck movement, more mobility within the power play, where guys can play multiple positions, and that's going to confuse people. When they were struggling, it's Pettersson was on one side, Besser was on the other, or Miller. No movement was happening, and it was easy to get the sticks in the lanes. I want to see more movement, because other than Horvat, Hughes, and Pettersson, other than Pettersson and Hughes, Horvat, Miller, and Besser are interchangeable in any of those places. And I would love to see more mobility around that to create easier shots for Pettersson and easier shots for Hughes. So I'm excited about their power play. It's going to be good. Yeah, the first game against Edmonton is going to be a track meet, man. Like both teams love to skate and both teams love to score. So it's going to be fun. Actually, the whole Canadian division's like that. There's no trapping teams in Canada.
No, and it's something we've never seen. And it's what's so exciting about this condensed season is that we're going to have these mini playoff rounds where, you know, and Antoine Roussel said it well. He talked about, you know, guys having to answer the bell the next game because of something that happened in the first game. And then the third game, you might have another thing going on, and just there's going to be these little mini rivalries, kind of like what you see in baseball, although baseball is more of a game than a sport per se. So or even a hobby, perhaps a pastime. But one thing I would say before we sign off is there's a guy that Niels Hoaglander really reminds me of, a guy that, you know, same kind of stature, the same kind of gritty play, really high skilled. And I you know, I hope that he could be a type of role model for him, for Niels Hoaglander. And that guy is Brad Marchand. So let's hope the ceiling is there. And maybe we'll send Niels a bit of a highlight reel of some of the things that Brad Marchand has done to make the league a better one.